Hello there, readers. Chapter 15, Home. This is the final read aloud that I will do this school year. This is the last one. We will not have time to do another book. The azure sky was broken only by clouds. Clouds, soft dabbling of a paintbrush on the canvas above. Nearby, birds chirped, their calls rebounding off the flat expanse of the lake. Laying back on the picnic blanket, Meg tilted her face up to the sun. It was a relief to be back where the sunshine felt like it should, not like that horrible fake stuff. How are you doing, sweetie? Meg's mom dropped down next to her. Their dog came panting up as well and stretched out on the grass under the tree nearby. I am happy, Meg said. Her mother smiled. You should be. You did an amazing thing, my dear. Only, I know. No more tessering without a parent, Meg said. Meg didn't think she could tesser again on her own anyway. Honestly, she had no desire to go anywhere anytime soon. She was enjoying life there too much. For the first time in a long time, everything felt right. Down to the shoreline, her dad and Charles Wallace were busy building a sandcastle, complete with bridges, over channels, towers, and a domed observatory. They were both meticulous. They were both so meticulous that Meg had to laugh. Right then, they were debating about which round rock should go by which building. Calvin, who joined the Murrays for the day, was further down the beach, unearthing more pebbles for them. Ever since his return, her father had thrown himself into being a parent, eager to soak up as much time with them as he could to make up for everything he'd missed. He begged Meg to reenact her fifth-grade play. He delved through all of Charles Wallace's drawings and hung up a gallery of them in the living room. They had family breakfast and dinners, game nights, movie nights. When NASA had called, he barely acknowledged them, although he had given Meg's mom a complete rundown of their journey, and they'd searched the star charts as the family to find possible galaxies for Ural and Excel might be. He'd promised them he'd never test her again, unless they all agreed to it. After 3 weeks, journalists and newscasters had given up on getting his story out of him and wandered away in pursuit of new subjects. The Murrays and Calvin had talked it over and decided the world wasn't quite ready to meet the rest of the universe just yet, and they didn't want anyone accidentally tessering into the path of the it. So for now, they kept their truth for themselves. It's so hard to believe sometimes, Meg's mom whispered, her eyes on the two builders. Meg knew what she meant. Some days she'd arrive in the kitchen and startled to see her dad was there, cooking eggs or flipping pancakes. The sight of his shoes in the hallway would pull her up short, and she wished she could bottle the rumble of his noise as he read to Charles Wallace, part of her not fully trusting it wouldn't disappear again. Yet the biggest change was in her mom. Meg hadn't realized just how much pressure had been weighing on her mother until she saw her relax. She'd never been uptight or anything and had rolled with every swerve and obstacle along the way for the past 4 years, but as soon as Meg's dad came back, her spirit seemed lighter. She laughed more, uncontrollable, full-bodied laughter, and she would dance around the kitchen as she cooked. Meg would find her snuggled on the couch with a novel, something she hadn't had time for in years. And she routinely sent their father out for groceries, claiming he owed her about 600 trips or so. Yes, boss, Meg's father would say, saluting her as he headed for the door. Meg reached over and squeezed her mom's hand. We're really okay, she said. We're more than okay, thanks to you, her mom replied, squeezing back. She's a true hero, Calvin said, walking back towards Meg and her mother. Meg felt heat rising in her cheeks, and she ducked her head. You too, she said to Calvin. You're both terrific. Now, if you excuse me, I think I'll go to these two architects down there. Now, oh, let me back up. Now, if you'll excuse me, I think I'll go see if those two architects down there can tear themselves away from city planning long enough to eat lunch with us. Meg's mom stood and winked at Meg before floating down to the water. Calvin flopped down next to Meg. I could eat, he said. Meg laughed. Calvin was always hungry, she'd discovered, even after a meal. It was as though his body burned calories by smiling. So, of course, his stomach was eternally empty. They shared a smile, then Meg pulled the blanket toward her, and handed him a jelly sandwich and an apple before picking out her own. How's track going? Meg asked. Really good, Calvin answered. My dad's coming around to it. That whole competing against yourself idea appealed to him, so he gets that aspect of it. And I think he's genuinely impressed with me at times. As he should be. You're a blur out there on the field. Calvin smiled at her praise, blushing. Thanks. If you want to know my secrets, sometimes I picture us back there with it ripping the ground and the trees into shreds behind us. They both shuddered at the memory. After experiencing that, Meg felt extra empathy for those who lived in tornado country. That would get me moving too, she said. For a few minutes, the crunching of their food was the only sound. By the water's edge, Meg's dad and brother had convinced her mother into holding a stick with a rock on top as they packed sand around it into the shape of one of the flower pods they'd seen in Ural. Bet you nobody else in our class has logged so many miles, Calvin joked. Or flown on the back of a furry ribbon creature, Meg added. Nor trekked through anywhere as cold as Ixchel, he shivered. Nobody else had seen the beauties of the universe or battled its darkness. They'll never know what we went through, Meg said. Her voice ached a little. She knew nobody would even believe them. But if she could, she'd shout about the dangers of the it through a megaphone on top of the cafeteria table and paint them all a picture of the incredible landscapes and creatures beyond their planet. But nobody could really fully appreciate it until they'd been there themselves. But we'll know, Calvin said softly. He brushed off his hands and then gently reached for hers. Sparks burst under her skin at his touch. After a few minutes, they settled to a steady glow, like a candle. Out of all the people across the galaxies, they found each other. He saw her for who she was, and she knew him better than anyone else could. After all, they'd been on the edge of the universe. They'd been to the edge of the universe and back. Something tickled her finger. Peering down, she saw an ant crawling over her hand, crossing from her brown skin to Calvin's white, and back again where their fingers were intertwined. He was studying it too. Must be on its way to the crumbs, he said. As it dipped down onto the blanket, Meg looked up at Calvin with a grin. Shall we help it along? Laughing, the two of them wrinkled the blanket so the ant could step from its spot to the juicy morsel of sandwich in the blink of an eye. You're welcome, Meg whispered, happy to give the ant its own sort of tessering experience. What's so funny? Mr. Murray called. Just the magic of the fifth dimension, Meg answered. She stood up and pulled Calvin to his feet next to her. Come on, she said. We've got a planet to build. Whooping in joy, the two of them raced down the beach, sand grains shifting between their toes and wind playing with their hair. Fortinbras lumbered to his feet and trotted after them, wearily amused at their wild movements. Mr. Murray swept Meg up and spun her around, making her shriek as Mrs. Murray queued up a song on her phone. Here Comes the Sun began playing, the notes booming out of the portable speaker Calvin had brought from home. The music soared as Meg, Calvin, and Charles Wallace chased each other through the sand, and the Dr. Murrays danced to the beat. No matter what darkness still lurked on Earth and in the universe, they had each other and would stick together, no matter what. And that concludes Disney's version of A Wrinkle in Time. So, boys and girls, I hope you learned some really cool quotes through this. I was just thinking back and trying to remember some of those powerful quotes that we had come across in this book. And I hope that you continue to read this summer and realize what a powerful thing reading can be. I'm still sitting here thumbing through trying to find that quote. It was such a beautiful quote. Yeah, you guys are just still sitting here watching me. This is one of them. We must have faith in them. Experience and years are not everything. They have a will to win, and the bonds of love between them is strong. We have given them everything we can, and although this is not what we intended, remember that light always finds a way. People are like stained glass windows. They sparkle and shine when the sun is out, but when the darkness sets in, their true beauty is revealed only if there is light from within. This was a powerful book, so thank you for experiencing it with me.